It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Andy Van Beber. That over there, in that darkened window is Travis Kirkendall.
I'm Travis. Hi.
He's in a dark box today. And our co-conspirator, Sean Phillips, is still in the middle of some major transitions right now. And so we wish him the best, and he will be back with us soon. But today is October 9th, Monday. We're actually doing the podcast on our originally scheduled day, on a Monday. How fantastic is that?
I know, it's been a while. I can't remember the last time we've had a Monday show. It's
It's
been chaotic.
yeah, it's been very chaotic, and we're able to do this on the day that we were originally signed to do it, and it actually is easier for me that way. But hey, happy Indigenous Peoples Day, formerly known as Columbus Day, or Rape, Pillage, and Plunder America Day, I guess, whatever. Oh, political correctness and all of its fun stuff. But anyway, did you have the day off, or did you have to go in today?
I didn't work today, so at the university I was working at, they were definitely off today. So that was cool.
So no.
Northwestern University is not going to miss Indigenous Peoples Day. So
So no mail, but Janine had the day off, which we needed the day off. We this weekend, some of you who follow me on Facebook and on Snapchat and all the fun stuff saw that we did the Texarkana run. It went down on Friday, left Friday morning at 9:00, got there at about 5:30. Yeah, 5:30. So roughly about 8.5 hours going down. And then and my niece's wedding was on Saturday. I DJ'd that. So I hauled all of my equipment down in the van with our luggage, so I actually strapped some of the stuff down to the top of the van. So it was like Clampett's coming to town.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was great. And so
I'm sure your gas mileage is plummeted with all that.
it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the best that I've had, but it wasn't the worst. But
You didn't take that big of a dent out.
yeah, but then we did the wedding, had a big time down in Texarkana. And Texarkana is one of those cities where I was kind of messing with my kids. I said, oh, now we're in Texas. Oh, now we're in Arkansas. Oh, now we're in Texas. What, Dad? Huh? So that was fun.
That's confusing.
And then came back yesterday. Left yesterday morning at 8:15. Got home again at about 5:00. So it was a hellacious day.
That's yesterday. A weekend right there.
That is. And then today we've all just been sitting around doing a bunch of nothing. We're all been dead. I actually did a ton of grading today and got my checkbook balanced. And today was a sort of rest day, I guess.
Adult things.
Adult. Let me use the term air quotes. Adulting. So
adulting.
Yes, I hate that term. But anyway, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Nothing. Didn't do anything too crazy. We kind of just hung out at home, got some more stuff organized, and just, getting ready for the baby.
So what are we down to now? What weeks, days, what are we down to?
He is 37 weeks pregnant.
So 3 weeks?
Yeah, roughly 3 weeks. But, I mean, you know how that goes. It's pretty much game on the whole month.
Yeah, so.
But we are excited, anxious, and, it's...
Well, there you go.
Hey, crowd, there
you go. So yeah, we're excited for you guys. That's great, man.
Yeah. It's all I think about every day, all the time.
Man, it's I'll send you a cigar in the mail, and we'll puff them away to celebrate the birth of your son. So,
Amen. Please do.
yeah.
Please do.
But no, like you said, Sean is still in the mix of things, and he's still busy. Good vibes, prayers, thoughts for him as he is transitioning
Absolutely.
through this time. I think they were able to have a little bit of family time. What did they do? What was it? Universal? It may have been just Tony and Jam, but
I think it was her, and then they met up with a friend from what I
yeah.
kind of saw on Facebook.
So
That's cool. They got to take her and do that before they
yeah,
do the thing.
do their thing. But this weekend, holy cow! If you were like me and
Unless you live
Travis,
under a rock, I think you know what we're about to discuss.
yeah,
This
this is this is kind of one of those topics that people sometimes I think people have a difficult time understanding, knowing what it's all about, knowing what is actually going on in Israel. Why are people upset? Why is there what there is going on in Israel? For those who don't know, we'll give a quick update as to what's going on, and then I want to give a little bit of a backstory, and then we'll move forward into what is happening. Over the weekend, Islamic, or I should say, a militant Islamic group within Gaza, known as Hamas, launched a barrage over 2,000. They claim 3,000 missiles into Israel. They also hand glided, broke through barricades, and went to what was called the Nova Music Festival that was happening basically is out in the desert there. I think roughly like 50 or 75 miles from, maybe not even that, from Gaza, and killed 200 some odd people who were at this music festival. And
I want to say, they recovered they found like 260 bodies
Yep.
or 270
Yeah,
bodies.
I think
and I think that number is still.
yeah. And they took a
taking
number
it
of
to-
hostages back into the West Bank too, and also from nearby
Yes.
towns.
It's
What
been
we
confirmed that I think Biden confirmed 11 Americans have
yes,
been dead now. Confirmed.
Yep, yes,
And
confirmed.
they haven't.
And
I don't think they've confirmed if there was any Americans that were hostage, but from what I've seen, I think there might be.
yeah, that's
But
exactly what I was.
there's been no official report from
Right.
the White House or.
Nothing yet, and I think that's a one of those critical topics that you want to be careful addressing when you address it. All of this comes at an inconvenient time for the Biden administration, who on September 11th released, unfroze $6 billion in
I believe it
Iran,
was $6 billion. Yes.
Iranian assets in
I was
exchange.
reading something about it was like it was being held with a South Korean bank or something
Yeah,
like that. I don't know
yeah,
what.
yes. So it was basically in a South Korean bank. We froze those accounts to Iran. By many account, and we had prisoners who were released as a result. And so what is being said right now is, well, that what we're slowly discovering is Iran has partially provided some support to both Hamas and Hezbollah, who is another radical Islamic group that is based in Lebanon to the north of Israel. And so if you look at some of our sources that we have looked at today, that money hasn't even cleared the bank yet and hasn't been released to Iran. So a lot of this is speculation that people are saying, well,
And I just want to clarify that was that was two different sources. I saw that. I didn't do a ton of research other than just a brief read up. But yeah, I don't. From what I've heard, that money wasn't a direct,
right,
wasn't directly behind this attack.
right,
But obviously, more will come out from that. And then you kind of talked on there's speculation that Iran may have been involved, whether financially or not. I was reading Hamas has claimed that Iran helped them plan this attack, but Iran is now denying that they had anything to do with it.
Yeah, because
So going to be interesting to see what comes of that. Because I mean, if it comes out that this was a state-backed terrorist attack, we're having an entirely different discussion now.
exactly, and this is one that you don't want this to become bigger
I
than
will
what
say
it.
I'm happy to see it. They're not rushing to a decisions on this.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad that we're being very careful in how we approach this. 'Cause there's still a lot of uncertainty with this whole charade.
Well, and we have to. You have to. I think there's a lot of. There is a lot of. There is a lot of. You've got to really. It's a very. What's the word I want to use? It's a very fluid situation, right?
History or very complex or yeah, fluid. That's a good
It's
thing.
a very right now. It is a very fluid situation, and this people have to be careful as to what. I was watching. I was actually watching a guy he was raised Jewish, but he's actually now he's an atheist. He lives in London, but he's still Jewish by heritage. And so
Okay.
the what really came out of this whole thing was he said, you have to see this from both sides. Both sides have done things that have, not looked good from the outset, and so and that's some of the things that we're going to look at today. And part of this is going to be, I guess I want to say, a brief history lesson. I don't know if there's such a thing as a brief history lesson on this. But what I would like to propose to some folks is just before we get into actually what actually happened here or what this is to kind of give you a backdrop of what happened in this whole scheme of things. Okay, so let's go back to the time after World War II. Okay, World War II. This was a difficult. This was the time. The Jewish Holocaust had been made known public, and people knew that there had been things that had happened to Jews, atrocities. 6 million Jews were killed, and with the founding of the UN shortly thereafter, after this war was over, there was a lot of discussion. Okay, what needs to happen? What needs to happen next? Okay, what needs to happen next? Should we create a Jewish state, or what do we do with the Jews? Because when people think about persecution of the Jews, that's what they think about is World War II. That's it. The truth of the matter is that the Jews have been persecuted for thousands of years.
What was the one prior to the Holocaust? Wasn't that with the Jewish too, or the Holodomor or whatever? Wasn't that?
Yes.
Was that Jewish as well?
Yeah.
Jewish. Okay.
So when we look at how this whole Jewish thing plays out, 1947, the UN proposes that the British control the British colony area known as Palestine, which is now Israel. The UN convinces Britain to relinquish control of British Palestine to the Jewish people, call it Israel, which is historic in text, and that's the biblical name that was originally assigned to this group of people back thousands of years ago. And so, all right, well, we can do this. We'll do this. We can, and in doing so, you just alienated, close to 1.5 million Palestinians. Arab Palestinians, Islamic by faith, Palestinian by birth, Arab people. And so this immediately creates a state of tension within Israel. So in 1948, I forgot what the exact date was in 1948, but Israel is declared a state. They declare themselves a state. And not 30 minutes later, President Harry Truman recognizes Israel as a state and claims them as an ally. Okay, so we were the first on record to be an ally of Israel. Okay, now these Palestinians do not like Jews being, this goes back thousands of years that Jews and Muslims, don't quite get along. Where the history kind of got muddied is kind of, there's a couple of different times you can point to, but in the modern era, they have not gotten along well. And so this goes back and forth until 1967. In 1967, which is also about this same time of year in 1967, Jordan, Egypt, and Lebanon declare war on Israel in the 6-day Yom Kippur War. And Israel not only defeats their enemies, but they take over part of what's known as the West Bank, which is on the west bank of the Jordan River, which originally belonged to Jordan. So the discussion becomes then, and let me bring up a map real quick here. This area right here, I'm sorry, Travis, you can't see this, but this area that we see here, that's in this this white and brown area right here, this is the West Bank. Okay, and so now Israel has to decide, okay, what are we going to do with this West Bank area? What is this West Bank area what are we going to do with it? What can we do with it? Can we do anything with it? And so Israeli troops begin to occupy this area, and it becomes known as the occupied West Bank. Well, so then arise what's called the Zionist movement, and the Zionist movement was, this movement within the Jewish faith, the Jewish people, kind of the far right extreme, ultra conservative, if you will, the Jewish part that says we're going to settle this territory. This is our land. We're going to take it. We're going to settle it. And so that's starting in the late 1960s. Then Jewish settlers start to settle in this land that was originally Palestinian, was originally Jordan Palestinian land. And this settlement, originally started like in the 1960s, you had like 10,000, some of the stats I've seen today, like 10,000, you had 10,000 Jewish settlers who moved into this region. As of my research that I had done within the last, there are close to 400,000 Jewish settlers who now live in this area. Okay, now, so there's all of this back and forth that goes. There's a lot of disputes that are going on, and so I'll just say during the Bill Clinton era, you then have what's called the Oslo Accords. So the Oslo Accords then, and go back to this map real quick, with the Oslo Accords divided Jerusalem, or divided the West Bank up into three areas. Area A, which is, if you look on the map, there is a dark brown areas, that's full Palestinian control. Area B is Palestinian administration, Israeli support, area Israeli security. That means it's patrolled by Israeli military. Area C was kind of that area that's up for grabs. Okay, now in these light brown areas are where you're starting to see a lot of these settlements. these settlements are connected to Israel directly by what's called flyover roads. These are roads that are built in in the West Bank to connect these settlements with Israel. Okay, so that doesn't go well with the Palestinians. Some of the rich agricultural and mineral areas are
Can I
part.
add something to the roads thing really quick?
Yeah,
I don't know if this is the same thing, but I was reading that there's some roads, and again, correct me if I'm not on the same topic here, but there's some roads that only Israelis can use, and
those are
Palestinians are not allowed to use the roads.
right.
Like
And
there's,
they are there are some of them that they can use, but they have a lot of checkpoints on, and I mean, if they'll check your papers and they'll check everything, and they check your cars over and they empty out the vans and all this other stuff. So now, and then in the middle of all this is Jerusalem. Jerusalem, which is, you have West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem is Palestinian. West Jerusalem is Jewish. Okay. Then you make things even more interesting. Then you've got the Gaza Strip. I'll bring up the map one more time. So the Gaza Strip is over here on the far western side of Israel. It's that brown area down there towards the bottom. The Gaza Strip is where, and this is part of those Oslo Accords too, that this was going to be an area that was going to be largely Palestinian. Okay. And so that's Palestine, but it's still under, they have a lot of fences, security barriers, everything around the Gaza Strip. In 2005, Israel forced all, and there have been Jewish people who had tried to settle Gaza. And as part of these accords that were signed by Bill Clinton and I forgot who the Israeli prime minister was at the time. But what part of that deal was, okay, we're gonna pull these guys out. We're gonna pull our Jewish settlement out of the Gaza Strip. Okay. So then in 2005, all you have left there is Palestinians, and they're allowed to have their own self-sanction, Gaza City, have their own parliament, the whole 9 yards. In 2007, they have their first elections, and the parliament is taken over by Hamas, which is it's a Palestinian. It's basically it's a acronym, but in Palestinian, in Arab it translates basically to an Islamic Free State. Okay, and in there, and when you look at Hamas's, whatever you want to call it, their manifesto or whatever you want to call it, they not only call for the elimination of the country of Israel, but they call for an extermination of all Jews worldwide. Okay. That's not something that I'm making up. You can go and you can go and look at the Israeli or the Hamas. What do you want?
It's like their constitution or whatever.
Their manifesto says we want to see all Jewish. Okay, and so this back and forth, and then with the increased settlement of what's going on in the West Bank, what's going on in Gaza, and something else you need to understand too, Gaza is the third densest populated place in the world.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
The third. Now, I have been to Beijing, and I have been to Hong Kong. That's number one and number two. Okay. Hong Kong, when you're walking down the streets of Hong Kong, you barely got room to walk without, there's no such thing as personal space. So I can kind of relate to seeing this, but the Gaza Strip they have high unemployment. They have high poverty rates. It's not pleasant. And
another point to that too, I believe, and I think Egypt's part of this as well. There's a blockade on along the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, on both sides, Israel and Egypt side. Egypt doesn't want any of this spilling over into them either.
Right. So this has been going on for a few years where they've limited the amount of goods that go in. You brought up the point too that there's a 50% unemployment rate. So this is a very impoverished area. So a lot of the people living there, they do not live in great conditions whatsoever.
And with the
And to add further to that, and just to fast forward really quick, on top of all that, when the siege started with Israel, they cut off all water, all electricity, everything to that area. Everything's been cut off.
now this
But
is,
go on.
and I want to put this out here too. We are not there's to understand this whole thing. This isn't as cut and dried. When we started, when we started talking, I mean, this was hitting our group chat up. I mean, obviously, as this was happening on Saturday, this was happening in real time on our group chat, and I'm like, okay, I need to really dust up on. I mean, I know as a history teacher and a world history teacher, I know about Israel, and so I was like, man, I got to start doing some dusting up my research. And in looking at this, I don't like how CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all these guys, and they put they're putting their talking heads on there, right? And they're
Real
talking.
quick, what is, because I've been following Fox News, what is like CNN and what's their like take
Well,
on it?
the solution to the plan is simple: stop the occupation of the West Bank. I mean, there's a lot. When you go to the CNNs and the MSNBCs, you're going to see a lot of these guys. The solution is simple: if you stop the occupation, you will end the situation. There's that side. Okay, the other side that has been, and we here's the thing: Israel has offered Gaza its own autonomy twice, and it's been turned down. Without it, I don't know why balloons keep on popping up in my face. It must be some kind of thing when I'm doing this. It pops up. Sorry if you see
Autonomy, you mean like, what do you mean by autonomy? Like to be their
be
own
their own,
independent
be their
thing?
own. This has been offered to Gaza twice. Okay, you can be autonomous. We're going to let you. Trade can flow
Was
in.
there more to that deal, or was it? I
I
guess
don't totally understand the whole thing of that deal, but I know that it has been. This has been within the 2000s that this has happened. Okay, and for whatever reason, I mean, it's. I think within these radicalized groups, and just like any other radicalized group, they make up a small percentage. Hezbollah, which is the radical group in Lebanon, the Lebanese, so Hezbollah is firing missiles from the north. And the Lebanese prime minister said, this isn't us. We're not sanctioning this. We don't want to be a part of this. Please do not, we're not anything with this. Okay. And so there are a lot there. It's just not that simple of a thing that you can say, okay, well, here's the solution. Let's have a 2-nation state. Then there's another one that says, let's just make a unified state where Palestinians and Jews can coexist. Okay? And from a lot of the stuff that I've been reading and listening to, the overwhelming opinion on that seems, and from both sides, seems to be, no, that's not going to work. Because what it'll be is, one side will be fighting the other side to see, okay, who's going to
be Republican Democrat on steroids.
Exactly. Thank you. That's the best way of putting it. It's Republican and Democrats on steroids. It is
or like North and South,
right?
Go even that far.
And I mean, people are. I don't like it when I hear people say though, well, the Israelis are they're the oppressors while the Palestinians are the victims, and I don't like when people say the Palestinians are the terrorists and the Israelis are it's not. This is not, and I emphasize not. And again, this is from my own white person, Christian, total observationist view. This is not you can't look at this as a straight black and white issue, because
I would, real quick, can I interject?
Sure.
I would recommend people that want to hear like stories from both sides, from Palestine and Israel. Lex Friedman has on a couple guests from both sides
Yes.
and just lets them explain it. And
I didn't get
it's
around to listen.
eye-opening to hear both
Yeah,
sides.
I have not.
But
That's on my list to listen to later on this week.
they're good interviews.
Yeah.
They're really good interviews. And it really paints the picture of like what is actually the issue. And to just listen to those interviews alone to say that there is a good guy and a bad guy in this fight is a stretch.
Yeah. So, excuse me, but
that statement is not to say that what was done was justified by any stretch of the imagination.
right, and there this is and people have to, part of our mission here is to educate people and to say, okay, this isn't something that is just blown up overnight, and this is just not an isolated incident. This is, however, and I had just heard this before we came on. I was listening to some news blurbs. This is the largest, and for Israel to have these kind of numbers is pretty impressive. But this is the largest death toll in a whatever you want to call an invasion, an attack, a whatever that Israel has ever had in its whatever 75-year existence. This is the largest. And Israel prides itself on their intelligence community, on their defense system. Jerusalem has what's called the Iron Dome, which is their missile defense system. Israel is considered to be one of the safest cities on the face of the planet because very few, there's rocket attacks on Jerusalem all the time, but there are very few that get through. Now, the rest of Israel does not have as sophisticated of defense, but they still have. And Travis, I think today, didn't they say that Israel is calling up 100,000 reservists? Their military, I believe.
I want to say it was initially it was 100,000, but I think they have up to 300,000 that they are prepared to use.
And so this is going to turn into a big deal real fast. And when you look at the Israeli military, like a lot of European states do this, a lot of Middle Eastern states do this. Part of your citizenship, if once you turn 18, you either have to work, I think it's 3 years for the government, or you have to serve 3 years in the military. And then once you serve your 3 years, you're a reservist, I forgot, for however many years. And so you're still on call up until, I want to say, like up into your 40s. All right. Their so their career military people are some of the most sophisticated, trained people on the planet when it comes to operations and how to hand-to-hand combat.
Their special operations guys are no joke. And like the whole, like, I want to believe the Krav Maga, like the fighting style, originated from the Israeli
I'd read that.
Special operations units. And
the other thing that I found most, and I shared this with the fellows this weekend, in doing research for their Air Force pilots, they start training their pilots and how they pull this. I mean, they don't get into the cockpit, but they start training these guys at age 14. Okay. Then they don't actually get into but I mean, like these kids who test high on whatever, I don't know how they select them, but they train these kids. And then at age 18, they're in the cockpit and they're flying these planes and they're simulating and they go through the simulations and all that stuff. So Israel is, when it comes to the military, it's no joke. And so when Netanyahu made the statement that Benjamin Netanyahu, who's their prime minister, who by also under the way is also under political investigation for corruption within the government, so it's not a good day for him.
He's a controversial figure.
Yeah, he's a controversial figure to boot, and it's not a good day for him to be him. But he made a statement. It came up on my phone this morning, but it was, I guess, mid-afternoon there or whatever. Netanyahu basically has promised to rain down hellfire on Gaza, on
which, if you've seen this the rocket fire that's begun, absolutely insane. The
Yeah,
response to
yeah,
Israel is starting off with.
yeah,
I mean, full buildings. There's been reports of apartment buildings being leveled. They targeted a mosque that got leveled, a marketplace. And I mean, the videos
yeah,
of the bombs going into the city is insane. And I want to go back to, again, Gaza is the third most concentrated city slash area in the world. One of those bombs goes off, or one of those missile strikes, easily 100 people are in that.
right.
And you can use your imagination of who those people are.
And for those of you who, I'll invite you to do this too, because I did this afternoon while I was waiting for Bryson to get out of swim practice. For those of you who have Snapchat, you can go on Snapchat and you can go on the Snap Maps, and they show areas on Snapchat that where you can just touch on where there's a high volume of snaps going on in that area. And I challenge you, go to the Gaza Strip. Go over the Middle East, bring up the Gaza Strip, zoom down on it, click on it, and you can get, and I'm not going to say it's cool, but it's very interesting to be able to get a first-hand perspective of people like you and me. People, Snapchat is this makes me sound like maybe like an overgrown teenager, but is actually my social media of choice because there's not as much chance to get into drama, and you get to see just stuff, unfiltered stuff from around the world as people see it. And I spent like 20 minutes this afternoon just going through, swiping through video after video after video of people taking image. I mean, people who are on the ground, walking through the streets of Gaza City, and just the devastation that you see going on there. I've also looked at a lot of the if you watch some of and don't do it if you have a weak stomach, but I mean, some of the videos from the Nova Music Festival, the people's post on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm surprised Facebook hasn't taken them down yet, but you can
That
go.
video is wild. The one I sent you guys, like everyone's just dancing, having a good time, and then the
And
camera zooms in the background, and you just see
the rockets
the
being
gliders. Well, the rockets, but also the
the guys
paragliders
coming on the
coming in.
gliders. You're like, what is that? And
Absolutely insane.
and of course you can't understand what they're saying, but I'm just wondering if some of those people thought, is this part of the show? Is this what are these guys coming in on hang gliders? And these guys came in. I mean, the most troubling one that I saw was these guys who were, so a lot of people were, playing possum and were just playing dead on, like, behind cars. And this one video I got of this woman who was running towards her car, and she's sitting in her car, and she's videoing this guy going by and just popping people. And this one guy who's playing possum behind this car, he picked the wrong time to raise his head up because one of the armed Hamas guys walked by, and they see him raise his head. They walk over. I mean, point blank range, just pop this guy right in the head. And I was like, I was like, did that just that? And to me, when I see stuff like that, I'm just like, pardon my French, but holy shit, that really happened. That wasn't a movie. That was somebody just getting popped, and for these are just, let's look at it this way too. These are human beings who are just out there because these weren't all Jewish people that were there. This Nova Festival draws people from all over the world. And, these people come in, I don't know. And it's hard to look at the, if you say, okay, we're going to look at this and say, this was right, this was this. But what the Hamas did was an atrocity. But now the U.S. has to look at, and this is where I want Travis to come in because he has a better hold on this than I do. But now the U.S. has to respond to this because we are their prime out. I mean, we've said it time and time again. Now, Netanyahu and Biden do not have the best relationship with each other, but they are talking. So, I mean, Travis, what are we hearing as to what the U.S. is going to be doing in response to all this?
So far, what I've seen, obviously, Biden went on and said that we stand with Israel. They have been our ally for a very long time. So that was the president's statement. I know Blinken's been he did a press conference too, kind of talking about confirming that
Secretary of State Blinken,
Americans
yeah.
have lost their, yeah, Secretary of State Blinken, great guy, sarcasm. Saying that I know the Americans have lost their lives and they're still looking into the rumors of possibly Americans being hostage. That hasn't been confirmed, but I've seen a couple news sources saying that might be the case because when Hamas came in, they took a lot of hostages as well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of videos of that
So
too on
far,
social media.
yeah, I haven't seen them, but I know they're circulating. Excuse me. So I've seen that. I know they announced that a strike group, carrier strike group, was going off the coast to basically what I would read it up as was a show of force to assist Israel. I don't know if they're actually going to do anything, but when the U.S. Navy shows up at your doorstep, that's quite a show of force. But we'll see. I think they were also there to help with like supply and stuff like that, or help with evacuations if necessary. But we'll see what role they actually play as it goes on. I know too. I was reading. I think I talked with you. God, I wish I had that article in front of me. But basically, we will be advising their special operations units on how to move forward. What that looks like. It was a very broad, not broad. What's the word I'm looking for? Wasn't very specific on how they're going to do that.
Right.
Typically, my knowledge is special operations in this case. Usually, if something like that happens, it's typically our special operations guys working with their special operations guys. Advising is a very loose term. But they haven't confirmed boots on the ground, so it's going to be interesting to see that.
Well,
now,
a statement that was made by, and I'm looking at this statement that was made by Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. We're also making very clear to our adversaries or those that might be entering this conflict to escalate it that they should think twice and not take advantage of the instability. And
I think that's a shot at Iran right there.
Yes, yeah, it was. This is a statement. So this is on the Department of Defense website. The United States is also bolstering U.S. presence in the region. Secretary Austin ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. The aircraft carrier has an embarked air wing and accompanying cruisers and destroyers. The force will conduct maritime and air operations in order to assure allies and partners throughout the region. To ensure regional stability, the strike group is prepared for the full range of missions. Austin has ordered more Air Force F-35, F-15, F-16, and A-10 fighter aircraft to squadrons in this region.
Now, one thing this is kind of what I want to discuss with this. The U.S. response to this issue. We've already know that Americans have been confirmed killed, right?
Right.
I don't think that's going to be enough to get U.S. boots on the ground. Or hostage situations. I mean, then we'll probably see some special operations stuff, or we'll never hear about it. That's kind of how that works. Yeah. But I think where things get interesting, there's rumors that, okay, so I think what we kind of touched on earlier, Iran may not have financially backed this with the money that Biden released. I think that's kind of being debunked right now. But they may have helped Hamas prepare for this with their own funding or their own advisors or whatever. Hamas has claimed that Iran helped them plan this. Now, mind you, this was a very sophisticated attack by land, air, sea. I mean, these guys did it all. This was a very well-planned attack. If in fact Iran helped them plan or had anything to do with this attack, now you're having a discussion of a state-backed terrorist a coordinated attack, and that is a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
And you already have Republican lawmakers calling for war with Iran. So It's going to be very interesting.
All of which also
I
at the
think
same at the other side of this spectrum too, you have to remember that we also have a Republican Congress that is in civil war with itself right now, and
yes,
you have two sides of the spectrum going on within that discussion. And just to give you an
yes,
understanding of how big Gaza is, okay, 140 square miles. Now, oh, that's a lot of territory. Twice the size of Washington, D.C. You could fit the Gaza Strip inside of New York City, okay? So that gives you a little bit of an idea. It has an 11 it says on this information I'm looking at here, 11-kilometer border on the southwest with Egypt, and then a 51-kilometer, if you take it from pretty much the rest of the way around, 51-kilometer border with Israel. All right, so we're not talking about, and there's 2.04 million people, almost 2.1 million people living in this area. Okay, this is this is not this is not the way that you want to see this situation play out, though. If we're sending
absolutely not.
we're sending troops to the area, we're sending one of our biggest, probably by the sound of it, one of our larger battleship groups in the Mediterranean right now over there. I mean, folks, you have to really be aware, and for those people who want to go and say, okay, I'm going to go bury my head in the sand. I'm not going to get involved in this. We don't have a dog in this fight. There are a lot of things that you need to pay attention to with this part of the world. Okay, in this part of the world, this is a to me this area is a powder keg. All right, most of the people who live in Israel and Gaza are Sunni Muslims. Okay, the majority of the Muslim population in the world is Sunni. Shiites are in the minority. All right. When you look at when you break down the population of Jews in the world versus Muslims versus Christians, there's roughly, I want to say, what is it, 5.5 million, 5.5, 6 million Muslims in the world. You know, so Christianity. I don't know what the numbers are, but I believe the Jewish. I'm going to look this up real quick, but I believe the Jewish population in the world right now is like one under. It's under. It's like 1 point or 0.2% or something of the world population is Jewish. And when the United States says we're going to come and defend this and we're going to come to this aid, throw all nationalism aside, these guys are going to get. I mean, this could turn into an ethnic war really quick if Hamas can show enough of the world. Okay, here's the bombing, not justifying what Hamas did and not justifying what Israel's doing, but this has the potential to really, go sideways quick. But
I think, and this is just speculation, if it's true that Iran backed this, I think you see a coalition force declare war on Iran. I think we see another 1990, what was it, 1991 when the UN NATO took out Saddam Hussein.
yeah, the first Gulf War, right?
I think you see something of that scale. Well, but you got, and it's like, who knows? I hope that's not the case. But you already have Americans confirmed killed in this incident. I know UK has had civilians killed. There's been other NATO countries that had civilians killed in this incident.
Right.
Israel is one of the biggest allies of NATO and NATO countries. And then Iran, which, quite frankly, we've been beefing with for years, and NATO in general has had issues with. This is an excuse for them to do what they've probably been wanting to do for years, whether you agree with it or not. And I've also seen footage. Iran, obviously, they're not big fans of us. Their parliament was chanting "Death to Israel, death to USA."
Right.
And that's they've been doing that for years, but that's been recent since this whole incident.
Right. The
And
Irene,
there's also the worry of them getting nuclear weapons. That's part of the whole nuclear deals that I don't know the details of all that mess, but that's obviously been a topic of discussion with the U.S. and Iran. There's been a lot of conflict there as well with that. So it's
Israel's
going to be interesting. It's going to
Israel's
be really interesting.
Iran's leader. If you know anything about, so is Syed Ali Hosseini. Um, he is the recognized Khamenei. He's actually 84 years of old, 84 years old, and he's the current supreme leader of Iran. Okay, and he's been in office since 1989. Okay, 1989 was the Ayatollah Khomeini. When he was in control. I mean, that's a lot of the war between Iran and Iraq, and then us, the Iranian hostage situation. This guy is related to him, and so there is this guy. He is not a, like you said, he is not a um, American fan. But to give you some sense, and I got my numbers correct now. So in the world, 2.2 billion Christians, 1.8 billion Muslims, okay? 1.8 billion. So 2.2 billion, 1.8 billion, 15.7 million Jews. Okay, just to give you, and we're nearing the 8 billion mark as far as world population goes. So of that 8 billion people, only 15.7 million are Jews. And any kind of genocide, you know, we've seen countless times throughout history of different groups wanting or trying to commit genocide against a certain group. I mean, you can go back to the Crusades when Christian knights, Templar knights tried to drive. We're going to drive. We're going to eliminate Muslims. We're going to get rid of all these guys. And then Hitler's crazy plan of we're going to eliminate. We're going to the final solution to. It's hard. It's hard. I know it's hard.
Even recently, the whole Bosnia Serbia incident.
Right. I totally forgot about that.
Region.
Yeah.
That before this came in news, that region's on the brink of another conflict too.
Yeah. Again, ethnic, quote unquote, ethnic cleansing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to go about saying this, but when you divide up into different squads or tribes or whatever you want to call it, our side, their side. And I heard a guy talking about this today, and we can kind of go with this on our way out. But in the whole, and we do it here with Republicans and Democrats, we demonize the other side. We demonize and we say, those people over there are wrong, we're right. You can't, at some point people have to have come to their common senses, and humans, we've lost our base sense of empathy. You know what I'm saying? To be able to empathize with somebody, not because they're, white, black. I empathize with you because you're part of the human race. When you look at the situation of all these people, of all these Jewish people who are being killed, of all these Palestinian who are being killed, there are Palestinians who are on the ground in Gaza who do not give a rat's hairy butt about Hamas.
You have children that are involved in this.
They have kids who are involved in this. There are Jews who are just, Jewish by heritage. My dad is Jewish, my mom is Jewish, and we just want to be, And when you look at some of these places and these settlements in the occupied West Bank, I mean, they're beautiful settlements. And people must be nuts to live there. Well, they're safe there, So I think we need to really look at people as at this whole situation. And first of all, I mean, if you're a person of faith, I mean, offer. The Bible has always said, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, pray for the peace of Israel. You know, this has been a hot spot for thousands of years. And what we do next, I think that this is going to be this. I don't know if I want to say this is going to be the beginning or the end of us. I don't know. Somebody in our chat group said, on our chat board said, you know, he said, we're looking at end times and Biden is weak. We will do nothing. The administration will do nothing. You know,
The end times.
you know, I mean, I could, you know, you want to put on, for me, this is to me, the end times are a real thing. It's something that's going to happen. Here comes my, I got rid of my foil hat, Travis. I'm sorry. My tinfoil hat is no longer down here. I could put it on. But
You know what I heard today? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
it goes along with this. I brought up that topic of like the end times, and sorry, I was kind of mocking it, so sorry if I offend anyone.
Okay.
And one of the guys at work was telling me, he's like, "Yeah, man, people have been disappearing." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been seeing this thing on TikTok. There's been stories of like people are just starting to disappear now."
That's
I'm
not
like,
the
"Are
way.
you serious right now?" He's like, "No, man, I don't know if it's true, but that's
It's
what I've
not.
been
It's
seeing."
not. It's not.
And I know that's like something they say happens. I was like, "Oh my God, maybe it is the end times."
We'll cover a show on that sometime. We'll. But
We should look into that, but that'd be an interesting conversation. But go ahead, go with
but
what you were
no,
going
but
to say.
you know, when you look at our position in the world, you know, and I watched. Have you probably seen that clip of the problem with Jon Stewart when he was at the G8 summit, and he sat down with a bunch of the world leaders, and he's like, you know, hey, are you on this team? Or are you going to be on our team? And it's like,
The
no,
best one was France.
no, yeah, no, we're not going to. So
Blink twice if it's France. I didn't blink. I'll wait. That was great.
But this is something that is going. I mean, in my opinion, you know, if I talk about the end times, and I mean, I could just, you know, graze the surface and tell you this. If you look in the book of Revelations, you know, you see that two of the main, they say the princes of the east. They say, you know, Gog and Magog, which is basically the area which is now known as Russia. They mention Israel. They mention the princes of Egypt. There's nothing that even could be remotely referenced to as America. We're not in the picture in the end. So, but that's another topic for another day. But you know, hey, but thanks for everybody who chimed in tonight. We had a nice looking chat board tonight. Thank you, Colby, for all your comments there. I see Colby just added it's in the Bible. Yes, it is in the Bible. So thank you for your comments.
I have
Go ahead.
one more quick update,
Yeah.
and I just read this.
Yeah.
Hamas has announced that if they continue with the siege, they're going to start killing hostages.
Yes. Yep.
So, very interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah, I just saw that come up on my phone just a few minutes ago. So Hamas warns Israel that if any more civilian bombings occur, they will start to kill hostages.
And to go back to what we talked about earlier, if there are in fact U.S. hostages, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the response is.
Yep, it will be. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We'll be back next week. I'm sure there'll be plenty of things that'll happen between Washington, D.C. falling apart, the Middle East falling apart.
Hey, if anything, this is going to expedite them getting a speaker, because now they got to sign off for more aid.
Yeah, right. That definitely.
Zelensky's probably like, shit, there goes my funding.
Yeah. Yep. Zelensky's over there thinking he's over there thinking.
He's still 2022. I mean, we're over him now.
Yeah, that's exactly what Zelensky's thinking. That right there. Oh, dun dun, you know, dun dun dun. But anyway, thank you all for joining this evening. Please follow us, subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are everywhere. We are on, you can follow us on Google Podcasts. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow, I know that we have a lot of people who'll be listening tomorrow morning and Wednesday morning on their drives to work. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We're still trying to get to the magic number of 1,000 on TikTok so we can add more rubbish on TikTok and, piss off more people on TikTok. But, hey, it is what it is. And, we're so glad that you guys decided to join us. For Travis Kirkendall and Sean Phillips, my name is Andy Van Beber. This is the Voice of Reason. We will catch you next week. Until then, have a great week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.